Today we're going to be talking about telling a meaningful story with your music. How to take our tracks to the next level of musicality and storytelling so that it really grips and engages our audience. I used to make music whimsically. Like I would just get into the lab, start producing a beat, and then just kind of let the track write itself. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. But when we add that extra layer of intentional storytelling, we're more likely to meet an ancient part of being human. Storytelling is something that we've shared for time immemorial. When we tap into that quality of musical storytelling, we open up a whole new world of engagement for our listener. Think about writing a track or a melody as writing a story. Let's talk some storytelling principles. The first one that I'm going to talk about is the atmosphere or setting. Where is the story taking place? What world, what land is the story taking place in? Is our musical storytelling taking place in a frozen wonderland with crystalline sounds? Is it taking place on a Viking battlefield? It might even be taking place in a nightclub in the 1970s. We want to think about what is the setting and atmosphere that my story is happening within, and we want to do our best to bring people to that place. Another thing we want to think about is what is the story arc? Stories always have a transformational journey to them, and obviously music does that too. How does our music set the atmosphere and setting, introduce the main characters, which are the main instruments that tell the story in your song? Maybe it's your bass line, maybe it's a guitar riff, maybe it's a vocal. And then from there, how do those main characters rise in tension and action? In storytelling, there's a principle called the inciting incident. This is where the story really truly begins. It happens after we've established the setting, after we've introduced the main characters, and then something happens that really gets them going on their story journey. After that inciting incident, there's a rising tension that happens. After that upheaval and rising of tension, there's often like a little bit of plateau to let the audience just chill out for a little bit. Then at that second drop, it's the peak action of our track. And then from there, after that full expression, there's like a little bit of a wind down as the story starts to end. The sounds we use and the melodies that we write in our songs are the storytelling language that we choose. We can use rhythm as a storytelling device as well. What does the rhythm and the melody say? In what way does the rhythm and the melody work together to create tension and then resolve tension? To address some of these points, I've got a couple of my own personal tracks that are produced open here in Ableton. You can see on the screen now that sections of the track are color-coded. You can look at this as kind of like a heat map of where things are like the most chill or cool or calm and where they get the most intense and fiery. What I'd love for you to pay attention to is the world that this track happens within. The story behind this track, this was the first track, I think in like my whole 20-year music career, where I was able to take a vision that I had in my head and perfectly translate it out the speakers in my DAW. Often I'll get an idea for a track, then it ends up completely different than I intended it to, which is fine. Sometimes the track needs to write itself. So satisfying having an intention and then making it happen. It's a world global bass music track, so really creating an atmosphere of geographical location and of where the story happens is really key to the vibe of the track. And then you'll find that from the strings and the basses and all of the melodies, there's a confidence to it. And that confidence was emblematic of what was happening inside of me when I wrote the track. And I think it translates out the speakers. Maybe you can decide that for yourself though. The string instruments and the bass are the main characters, and we'll hear how that there's a little bit of a resolve to the melody as the melody expands. So let's check it out. intro is soft and gentle, cinematic with the scoring instruments. By the way, the cinematic scoring instruments were produced with EastWest instruments. I used EastWest Silk, Raw, and Hollywood strings. All of those are available for purchase on the Black Octopus Sound website. You can find the link for those in the description. Our personal story really matters to us. It's like where we've been, the places that we've traveled to, the things that have happened to us in our life, joyful, sad, tragic, all of that has depth and meaning to it in our lives. Music is such a great way to have like an almost like be our own therapist and have like our own cathartic release where we get to process the things that happen to us and tell that story to the world in our own way. Here's another track that I produced that actually has a deep and meaningful story to it. This track came about because of an absolutely transformational experience I had when I was traveling in India in 2016. What happened was I was walking to the banks of the sacred river Ganges in India. As I'm walking up to the river, there's a moment where the river enters my vision for the very first time. And as it was entering my vision for the very first time, I had this spiritual experience that rocked me. It hit me so hard, it was just like a tsunami. It was just poof, instant impact. It was one of the most euphoric experiences I've ever had in my whole life. My eyes just burst with joy tears. So what you'll find is the world and atmosphere that this track happening in India, it uses classical and ancient Indian instruments, and the present reality of me as a sound designer and music producer, where there's a dance music beat that has like a baseline rawness and aggression to it at certain moments. Melodies that are euphoric and uplifting that I think tell the story, come close to telling the story of how euphoric and profound of an experience it was. So now that I've told you that, maybe you'll hear a little bit of that yourself in the track. So there you have it. Hopefully you're able to get the atmosphere, the world, the story that the melody had to tell of euphoria and like awakening epiphany and the joy and jubilance and radiance and effulgence that that moment had. How all the main characters join together to tell that story. To summarize, we want to think about building a world, whether it's a funky dance floor in the 1970s, or a Viking battlefield, or spiritual moments in temples in ancient India, moments of our deepest sadness and tragedy and feelings of aloneness. Like, what's the atmosphere? What's the setting? But also, what's the feeling of the setting? How can we include characters, instruments, that can help us create that atmosphere and setting and tell the story with melody, rhythm, tension, and resolve? Maybe you have a connection to ancient Greece. Maybe you have a connection to Hawaii. Maybe you have a connection to Norse mythology or World War II. Maybe your life has been so filled with grief that that is the story that you have to tell. And you can make music that helps others feel that sadness along with you so that others who experience it as well don't feel as alone. Thanks so much for joining us. It was a pleasure to have you here. If you'd like to experience more music production education from Black Octopus sound designers, please check out our platform, Black Octopus Gold. It's full of courses, tutorials, as well as you get monthly samples that are exclusive to members. If you sign up for the lifetime membership option, you get a free flagship product of your choice. So you get an extra awesome, super juicy deal. Take care.